Character designs, an important, occasionally overlooked and frequently misunderstood aspect of anime visuals. Character designs are crucial. They can make or break a show in more ways than you'd think. The amount of movement a show contains depends quite significantly on the designs and their line counts and structures. The degree of their reinforcement can massively impact the overall visual identity of a show, and besides that, they can complement the story itself. In other shorter words, they are very important. With that in mind, let's talk about character designs, what makes them good, what makes them bad, and the various ways in which a show might go about executing them. Make sure to subscribe. So, first things first, character designs are extremely subjective. It's extremely difficult and somewhat stupid to label a design using simple words like good or bad. It depends heavily on personal preference. Some might like a simple, less is more approach, while others might prefer a dense, detailed design. Yes, other people can like other things. I know, shocking. The recent infamous Kaiju 8 designs were met with heavy backlash. A lot of people seem to dislike them. Now, I myself wasn't that big of a fan. I liked some of them but disliked others, him in particular. But that was in fact my subjective opinion. I can come up with a few reasons as to why I wasn't a fan. I don't like the overly box-like shape of his skull. I don't like how tiny his hair looks compared to the rest of his head. I think his eyes and beard look a bit too goofy even for him. I can go on, but those are my reasons as to why I didn't like that particular design. You might love it for those exact reasons. There's no right or wrong here. As such, I will mostly ignore this subjective side of the topic. I won't speak at length about whether or not a design looks good. You don't like a design? That's fine, mate. Trust me. There is literally no counter argument to I don't like the way this design looks. We will instead explore this topic from a few technical and somewhat universal angles, namely context, animation philosophies, and degree of reinforcement. Context is a word that keeps popping up in these videos, and that's for a reason. Animation doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's a medium of storytelling, and therefore it needs to consider the story it's trying to tell. Hint is in the name. Simple things like a character's outfit or his or her build or other noticeable elements like scars, accessories, and more can tell us a lot, subliminally or otherwise. For example, a character with an unbuttoned school uniform has little regard for the rules and is therefore probably a delinquent. A character with scars on his body has probably been through a lot of fights, and the fact that he is still alive means he's probably battle hardened. Stuff like that. I hope you enjoyed the first episode of Judging the Book by its cover with yours truly. Also, the tone of the show needs to be taken into account. Grittier shows should, by principle, have a less cartoonish style. This rule can then be exploited by shows like Madoka Magica, which intentionally juxtaposes those cute moe designs with the dark nature of its story. A perfect example of this rule is Attack on Titan. The character designs for the first 3 seasons were drawn by Kyoji Asano, and the designs for season 4 were drawn by Tomohiro Kishi. Initially, AOT was an action-heavy show and the designs reflected that. They were relatively easy to draw. Easy for professional animators, not me. However, in the latter seasons, the amount of dialogue and the importance of the same increased significantly. The simple designs with those strong, glossy highlights started to work against the story. In my opinion, of course. Kishi's designs for season 4 were a lot grittier. They didn't look that flashy and the proportions were more realistic. As such, they complemented that portion of the story better. Designing a character isn't as simple as drawing a cool-looking person and calling it a day. Like most things creative, a lot of thought needs to be put into it. Another important factor is the animation philosophies of the show in question. Like I said near the start, the amount of animation, aka movement, shown by a show depends on the designs. The harder they are to draw, the less of them that can be drawn in a fixed period of time, and as a result, the amount of movement goes down. Designs can be difficult to draw in 2 different ways. 1, they can have a large line count, and 2, they can have a complicated structure. Line count refers to the number of lines needed to draw a character. Naturally, the higher the line count, the longer the amount of time that needs to be spent drawing. Look at literally any detail-heavy character design. Vinland Saga, for example, making a Vinland character move is significantly harder than doing so to a character from, say, Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2. Speaking of which, episode 16 of JJK Season 2 served as a perfect example of complexity being displayed not through a high line count but instead through the overall drawing philosophy. The episode's take on the designs had minimal highlights and shadows, meaning technically speaking the number of lines were less. However, there's a reason why drawings usually have shadows. They help convey volume. Drawings are flat and they are meant to appear volumetric through shadows. The shadow on the neck makes the jaw look like it projects outwards. This triangular shadow makes the nose look like it rises above the face, which it does. You get the idea. The lack of shadows meant that volume now needed to be conveyed through line placement alone. Each line had to be drawn with surgical precision, which definitely increased the amount of animation skill needed despite having less detail. Basically, the idea is that the amount of detail has nothing to do with the quality of a character design. A simple drawing is not the same thing as a flat or a boring drawing. If executed well, a minimalist design can easily outdo a detail-heavy one, and the opposite is true as well. These shows, despite looking different, are faithful to an overall style. The characters still look like anime characters. However, that's not always the case. For example, eccentric Masaki Yuasa works like Ping Pong or Tatami Galaxy depart from the pre-established mold of what an anime character should look like. And shows tend to do that every once in a while, perhaps not to that degree, but still. Whether it's My Hero Academia characters and their exaggerated facial features, or Ranking of Kings and its picture book-esque, almost Disney-like drawings. In fact, the only reason why a standard anime look exists is because most shows, modern shows that is, don't experiment with other styles, either due to a lack of time or due to pressure from the producers who want a safe, marketable product. And to a degree, that's fine. I think overly eccentric shows being a novelty is a good thing. They're like a special treat. The third and final aspect is the degree of design enforcement. And excuse the animation nerd talk here. Characters don't look like their design sheets all the time. An anime episode features a large number of animators, and these animators have their own styles and artistic nuances. Not all of them will draw the characters exactly like the designs. This is one of the reasons why animation directors and chief animation directors exist. They correct the final product and make it look more uniform. However, that's not always the case. Characters can look different depending on the scene, usually for two reasons. One, the animator/director has a distinct style and the creative head is fine with it. Or two, the drawings are broken and barely corrected because of poor schedules. And as you'd expect, the latter is more common. Anime is no stranger to design switch-ups, whether it's a comedic scene or a climactic finale to a fight. Now, I have covered this general topic before, so I won't talk about it all that much. But long story short, creative freedom is in fact a good thing. Artistic expression is what makes this medium so appealing. This good. However, at the same time, there's nothing wrong with a strict, consistent approach. It depends on the context and the execution. To quote myself from a few months back, in no universe is uniformity a bad thing. Strict design reinforcement is usually more time-consuming, and certain portions of the internet seem to have a weird hate boner for it, which is extremely unfair in my opinion. Again, I have talked about this before, and it's hard to explore this topic without talking about actual animation, and that's not what this video is about. Again, for the Lord knows how manyth time, character designs are extremely subjective. Associating detail with quality or personal preference with objectivity is an extremely stupid thing to do. I see people throw around moronic takes about this subject all the time, and it's quite unfortunate. For lack of a better term, good design complements the story, helps with characterization, doesn't hold the production team back, helps accomplish the creative vision of said production team, and hopefully looks good to most people. It's completely within your rights to dislike a character design, but your rights end there. Just like this video. Liked what you saw? Check out this other bit of content on screen. Like and subscribe, and until next time.